Hey everyone, I'm Penny with Specialty Outdoors. My blog and YouTube channel is the name of my blog, Badass Sewing for Dirt Bags. And well, how I got that name is a customer just said, "Aren't you the gal that does Badass Sewing for Dirt Bags?" And sure, I'll take that. I think it's awesome. Anyway, I'm sewing mostly for myself now, myself, friends, and family, and I thought I'd make a little video about my process when I'm trying to figure out what to do with something that's not just a sew and go type project. Sew and go would be like, you know, cut out a base layer or some leggings and run it through the serger, hem it, good to go. Sometimes I want to do a little more to a project because I have an idea of what I want it to look in the end. So in this particular case, I have some of this Polartec Thermal Pro from Discovery. It's a really awesome fleece. It's got a lovely kind of slightly, I don't know, crisp, heavy hand. And in my mind, it begs to just be tailored just a little bit. And so with the pattern I'm using, which I'll show you in the other video, I was just trying to figure out what to do for a seam finish. This particular pattern calls for 1/4 inch seam finish. And so, obviously you run it through your serger, that's a 1/4 inch seam. And I just didn't like how that looked. So I made a bunch of samples with just, straight stitching, cover hemming, and I'll show those to you, just so I could see what they were going to look like so I could choose one for my finished project. Sometimes when I do samples, I use a contrasting thread for visual, but in this case, I actually wanted to see what was going to look like on the finished product. So I did use matching thread. I hope this works for you to see it. So I made 6 different samples and I will show them to you and what I came up with in the end. So this is the fabric I'm working with. This is called Polartec Thermal Pro. It's a special Polartec fleece. You can see it's got a knit finish. So it's also called sweater fleece is what's commonly also referred to. So it's got this kind of harder looking finish on the outside, but it's regular fleece on the inside. It's the same content, the same lovely warmth. It's a little firmer than some of the fleeces to work with. It doesn't have a lot of stretch. And so for me, this just begs to be tailored a little bit more than just serging it. So I'll show you some of the things I came up with. This particular fabric came from Discovery Fabrics up in Campbell River, British Columbia. She's got a fantastic supply of this fleece and other fleeces. I love this one because you can make things for yourself that look like, $200 high-end name brand fleeces, but you get to make them for yourself and make them come out the way that you want them to. So I'll show you my samples. This particular pattern calls for a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which, your typical serger seam, 4-thread serger seam, is a 1/4 inch. So that doesn't give you a lot to work with, but I was able to come up with 6 different possibilities on how to, on ideas for how to do a seam finish for this fabric. All right, so let's take a look at the samples. First, I have here sample number 1, and this is just a standard serged seam, 4-thread serging, 1/4 inch wide, and I did steam press it lightly. This is what it looks like from the right side, but what I really don't like about this kind of seam is just it's a big blob under my finger. There's a lot of thickness to it. I mean, that's 4 layers of thickness right there, and it's either got to go one way or the other way. And I don't mind this for casual wear, but for what I am envisioning for this particular project, I really want to avoid this kind of seam. So for number 2, what I did here is this is serged edges, and then I did a straight stitch and I steamed it open flat. And I like this a lot better because it's flat. It feels better to the touch, but it's not quite what I'm after. After a couple washings, I don't know that this is going to hold and it's not going to kind of go back together. So that's sample number 2. This is sample number 3. And what I did here is I straight stitched it, the seam, I serged the edges, I straight stitched the seam, pressed it open, and then I top stitched it with 2 rows of top stitching to hold the seam allowance down. And I actually use this a lot on different fleeces just because I like the look of it. If you don't need a lot of stretch, it's a great sporty looking seam. And, now you've got your seam allowances fastened down so they're not going to be flopping around. So this is a possibility. Again, you can have to do one, 2, 3 rows of straight stitching to hold it down. But yeah, this works. So that's a possibility. Now here's sample number 4. And you can see this has the nice tailored finish on it. You can see it's held in place with some top stitching that's not really visible. And what I did on this one is I used my cover hem on a wide double needle cover hem. You can see the stitching right there looping along. And so this holds the seam allowances flat, which I really like. And it's got a top stitched look on the right side. So that's number 4. Number 5, I just thought I'd try something different. So this is serged, pressed open with it, and it's straight stitched, pressed open. And then what I did here is I reverse cover hemmed it. So this is the bottom looper of the cover hem, and the seam allowances are held flat with the triple needle. So it was a triple needle reverse cover hem. For some things, this would be great. Certainly an option for what I want for this project. I don't want that looper finish on the right side. Plus I have a top cover hem, so if I really want that, I could do it a little differently. It's a great option to consider, but we got one more sample to look at. And this is number 6. So this is straight stitched and then top stitched open, but on this one, not straight stitched and top stitched opened. It's straight stitched, and then I did a double cover hem, but I didn't serge the raw edges first. And so you can see, where the fleece is exposed, it gets a little bit fuzzy. Here, in this section here, I trimmed it with a duckbill. I trimmed it really close, so it looks pretty nice. This is where I didn't trim it. So this is an option too. One of the things you run into when you start top stitching seams is, how many times are you going to do the seam? You got to serge both pieces of fabric. You got to do a straight stitch. Now you got to do at least one more pass with a cover hem, or 2 more passes with another straight stitch. So this was time saving. You just got the straight stitch and the cover hem, but now I have to go in with the duckbill and trim it if I want it to look really nice. This is my duckbill trimmer, in case you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about. It's specifically made for applique, and so you can go right next to things and trim them really close. Let me do some more of that. You can see it. But now, instead of doing more rows of stitching, I've got some teensy trimming to do. So that's something to think about. But we've got the 6 options here, from just serged to cover hemmed in different ways. And what I have decided to go with is number 4 here. This is the one where it's serged and it's serged and cover hemmed on the bottom. And then it looks top stitched from the top. The seam allowances are held nice and flat. They're finished. And I'm going to use this finish wherever I can in the final product. This is the pattern I'm using. It's Wardrobe by Me, and it's the men's fleece jacket. It's got really nice sporty lines. There's a hood option, different pockets. And that's what I'm making for for my husband for Christmas, but don't tell him.